Hello, everybody. You are tuned in to the Walk Off Podcast. I'm your host, Justin here. I'm joined with Leroy and Jared. How you boys doing today?
Doing good. Baseball season's in full swing. The NFL draft this weekend, and hockey playoffs are about to start. Man, it's sports fans' dream right now.
Yeah, I've had a lot of stress over the weekend when it comes to the NFL, but so I'm ready to talk some baseball. I think we should do that and get right into it, Justin. How about it?
I agree, Jared. We don't need to put you through any more stress this week. As you can see behind him, he's definitely having a long week
I'm
here.
gonna have to take that Aaron Rodgers MVP picture down by the end of the day, but who knows?
Uh, we shall see. But anyway, like we said, we're going to talk baseball here as usual. So we're going to jump right into it. Unfortunately, we're not going to start with anything cheery. We're going to get this out of the way here. We're going to discuss the recent news of Roberto Alomar and his sexual misconduct allegation that has come out. Um, right now, he was working as a consultant to Major League Baseball, as this has come out back in 2014 when he was working for the Toronto Blue Jays. There was a female that also worked for the team who has now come out and said that he was sexually assaulting her at the time that he was working with the Blue Jays. Now, just unfortunate part about this is a very high standing guy, great player already in the Hall of Fame back in 2011. Like I said, working for the MLB, representing the MLB, and then this happens. What Rob Manfred has done, he has completely banned him from MLB, lost the job there with the Major League Baseball office. He is being taken out of the Hall of Fame. The whole 9 yards there. So this is a very, to me, unfortunate situation because it was what we all thought was a great guy. Whether this is true or not, it's definitely a big stain on on a career like his and a working career like his. Like I said, working for the MLB. So this has been somewhat of a big story that's going to keep developing as well. So I don't want to try and give too much information that may or may not be true as well. But to me, this is just really sad. And this is something we're seeing a little too often. And the unfortunate part with it is often as we're seeing it be true with a lot of these allegations as well. So again, not saying this is or isn't true in the case of Roberto Alomar, but I think it goes without being said, this is a very sad situation. Leroy, I want to hear what you have to say about it.
Yeah, honestly, Alomar, great player, right? Greatest second baseman of his generation. He's never been known to be a good person, though. He's his first wife divorced him because of aggression. The spitting incident. I mean, I remember watching that live where he's spitting in umpire's face. He's never been a good person. So, Major League Baseball was probably, pushing the envelope a little bit anyway by just employing him in general. There's something going on in baseball. And I don't know what it is. I can't really pinpoint it. But when you look back over the history of commissioners in baseball, from 1944 till 2015, when Rob Manfred took over, 6 people were banned from the game. Since Manfred has taken over in 2015, he's banned 5 people. So either baseball players are just getting worse behaviorally. Manfred's bar is set, really low or high, depending on how you want to look at it, or we just know more about it. But there's something's not right. Something's not right there. And then you talk about taking him out of the Hall of Fame, which it doesn't matter to me. I'm not a fan of the Hall of Fame. You guys know that. We've done a show on it. But if you're going to take him out of the Hall of Fame, we are now opening up the books on every player in there. And are we going to go back through and look at the transgressions from every player in the Baseball Hall of Fame now? Because he is not the only player in the Hall of Fame that has had a sexual misconduct allegation levied against him, right? So, I don't know what kind of Pandora's box they're opening there, but he opened it.
Yeah, I want to say one thing real quick, Leroy. I like what you said there. There's been plenty of players that have these allegations, but not in this social media day and age. And I truthfully do think that plays a huge part about the way Manfred wants to go about handling this, because that news just explodes in today's world so much more than anywhere else. And maybe in his mind, if he can turn the blind eye in the sense of banning them, then it'll alleviate the problem, which we know isn't true. But, I think that was a very good point there.
Yeah, I want to make something clear real quick when we say the Hall of Fame. He got actually banned from the Toronto Blue Jays Hall of Fame and not the National Baseball Hall of Fame. They're actually still going to keep his plaque up because they said that his career during that time when he was elected was worth Hall of Fame worthy status. And you can think about that however you want, but it is what it is. And also, the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame is keeping his plaque up as well, but he is actually banned from any ceremonies that they have. And I think that goes for the National Baseball Hall of Fame too. But yeah, the Toronto Blue Jays, they pretty much cut everything out regarding him. His number, his banner hanging from the Rogers Center, his job, obviously. Yeah, I'm like Leroy. We're seeing a lot of this nowadays in baseball. I don't know, like Leroy said, if this is just players and coaches getting worse, or if it's just something Manfred wants to look into all the time and wants to make sure he has a clean slate from it. But we saw with Mickey Callaway recently, Brittany Giroli, who was a writer for the Orioles back in 2012, said a player on that 2012 team sexually assaulted her. So we don't really know if these are true per se, but in this investigation, they found something, and it must have been something big for them to kick Roberto out of his job in Major League Baseball and pretty much ban him for the rest of his life. And he put out a statement too. He said he was going to focus more on helping the younger generation with kids, helping them achieve their baseball dreams instead of focusing on the actual MLB itself from this. And, we will never know exactly what happened on that day in 2014, but it is a bad look. And we've known Roberto for a while, us being Orioles fans. We've seen him play, and Leroy said it right. He wasn't the best person to be with, whether it be on the field or in the locker room, personal life, whatever. But it's sad for baseball to see this come about, and we'll just see what happens in the future with this. So I can't say much more than that on it.
Yeah, it's certainly a sad situation. For me, the biggest thing that I look at, the way Rob Manfred handled this, believe it or not, I think he um really is doing the right thing. Because if you look over at some other leagues that also employ human beings and is going to see the same issues, how much of a just a jumble that can become, and these situations can become when it wasn't handled right. If you take a look at this Deshaun Watson situation currently, and then compare that to how this Roberto Alomar situation was handled. Now, assuming we can say they both can be false, but I think one way is handling it a completely wrong way. Whereas, believe it or not, I do think in a way Rob Manfred handled this correctly. He did come out to say, Roberto Alomar voided our terms of the contract and all that. In terms of that and firing him, that was the right move. He Rob Manfred is right in that sense. Now it's just up to the jury of every Twitter and Facebook user in the world whether this is true or not. And I can't stress enough to people that that's not the right way to look at this situation. It's not up to the people, who have opinions behind their computer about this and the people actually doing the investigation. But in terms of with the Hall of Fame, I also don't really agree that he should be taken out of any Hall of Fame because that is about the player on the field. And that is something we've discussed multiple times. Roberto Alomar is not in the Hall of Fame because of Roberto Alomar. He's in there because of his glove, throwing arm, speed, and bat. But then at the same time, it is your representation to the league. But then Leroy made the really good point. I think we'd lose about half of that MLB Hall of Fame if you really want to go that route. And that is definitely something in the way today's world is with the social media, and you can't really hide anything about anyone, especially when you're famous. I think Rob Manfred definitely does want to be a little more careful, with these bans. It reminds me of a bar that just wants to kick out everyone. Eventually kick out so many people, no one else comes back in. And I do think that is a kind of a situation Rob Manfred can be looking at if he's not careful with this. But Leroy, you look like you want to say something.
No, it's again, it's this, the Hall of Fame. Thank you for clarifying that, Jared. Just the fact we're going to keep him in. Wait, what? So you're telling me that this guy can't get in because of steroids, political leanings, blah, blah, blah. But we're just going to keep him in. Like, what? It makes no sense. Shouldn't it be up to the baseball writers? They're the ones who decide who to keep out. It just makes no sense. So what you're telling me is, if you're doing anything dirty in Major League Baseball, just keep it under wraps until you get in the Hall of Fame. Because once you're in, you're in. That's just ridiculous.
Yeah, what's the standard, right? What are we going to judge it on? After you're already in, like Alomar, and you find this out, and now you're going to say, oh, well, we'll keep him around, I guess. But somebody who hasn't been voted in yet, like, a Barry Bonds or Roger Clemens, or even Kurt Schilling, how are we going to judge this? Do we vote them in because of their circumstances outside of baseball, or do we vote them in, and have them in there for their career? It's just a question we have to ask ourselves, and it's going to be interesting to see next year how the ballot goes, and we'll be talking about it here on the walk-off, I'm sure.
Yeah, like I said, this will be certainly a developing story. We will keep all the listeners updated as this goes on, but we'll get on to a more cheery note here. Jared, I hear you have something fun for Leroy and I here. It's like Christmas morning for us.
It's Christmas morning here on the Walk-Off Podcast. We have another new series coming to you. It's called Overrated or Underrated. Now, this is where I will give both Justin and Leroy a player, and they have to tell me why they think they are overrated and underrated. Pretty simple, right? This week's edition is starting pitchers, current starting pitchers. And we're going to be doing this not every week, but we're going to keep it going on the show, and we're going to do specific positions each time we do it. So are you guys ready for overrated and underrated? All right, let's do it. Justin, you're going to be first, man. Then Leroy, you're going to give your opinion on that same player afterwards. Justin, the first player that you're going to tell me is overrated or underrated is Garrett Cole.
All right, Mr. Yankee. I want to go off first to say, yes, this is Yankee. He is, in terms of this discussion, man, he is underrated. Yes, we know he went out. He got that ginormous contract from the Yankees. So far on this contract, he has only pitched in 18 games. That's really only about over a half of what a good starting pitcher and ace would see in a regular season at about 30 to 33 games. So far, just on his contract with the Yankees, since he is signed, he is 11-4 with a 2.14 ERA, 110 innings pitched, which is very good for the amount of games he's pitching with 20 walks. He's certainly underrated in my opinion. When we look at this, and then across the rest of his career, he has, I think it's a 3-something, low threes in his ERA. We know what he was in Pittsburgh. Unfortunately, as American League fans, we didn't see as much of him back then. Got to see his rise to push him for that trade to Houston. We know that was a huge deal. He went to Houston, became a 20-game winner underneath of Justin Verlander, would have that Cy Young to his name if it wasn't for Justin Verlander. Literally, he was the only reason Garrett Cole did not win that award. But then we look at also what he's done so far this year. Has just been absolutely incredible. He's everything as advertised. Without him, the Yankees are doing a lot worse, considering over half of the games they have won have been, or close to half of the games they have won have been games that Garrett Cole has started. When you're talking about overrated or underrated, you want to look at what does he do to the team that he's on. And Garrett Cole immediately made that Yankees team better and has proved that so far on that contract. Now, as we know, with the long contract like that, there's a lot of time for anything to happen, things to go wrong, him to drop off, maybe even get better. But we're sitting in his career, and then up to this point with this contract, I truly believe Garrett Cole is underrated. And I do think he's just going to continue to be even better, especially with the Yankees. And now there's something we get to see a lot of. It's really his only downfall last year was the home runs. And that's something he seems to be doing a lot better with this year, striking out a lot of people. As of now, after the start yesterday, 62 strikeouts to 4 walks. I mean, what else do you want from a pitcher with the 0.72 walks, hits per innings pitched? I think his career whip is barely over a 1, if it is even over 1. That's underrated to me. Whether it is the big flashy guy that talks a lot and, says, "Coach, give me my own catcher. I don't like your other guy." But to me, he is incredibly underrated. He has been amazing for that Yankee squad, really for the MLB since he was drafted in 2011, in my opinion.
Well, I got to say before Leroy goes, I guess we could say that an option for this could be properly rated because we know Garrett Cole's probably a 1-2 with him and DeGrom are probably at the top of the list when it comes to starting pitchers, and that's why I didn't put Jacob DeGrom on this list because he's the best pitcher in baseball in most people's eyes. So Leroy overrated, underrated, or you could say properly rated if you want to.
Yeah, overrated, underrated. I think it's a contextual concept. So what context are we looking at it in? If you were to say, uh, the serious baseball fan, the casual baseball fan, just the non-sports fan who just happens to know this is baseball's failure right here. So let's think about someone who doesn't really follow sports, right? I throw up my wife in this situation because sports are out on the peripheral. She was a heck of an athlete. She used to follow sports. Now there's kids and she pays no attention now. But if I were to ask her, let's take the second, third, fourth best player in the NFL, Aaron Rodgers. Let's talk Aaron Rodgers. She knows who Aaron Rodgers is. She knows who he plays for. She knows who he's dated. And we could go down the line. If I said, hey, what do you think about Garrett Cole? She'd go, who the hell is that? She would have no idea, right? And most people wouldn't unless you're a baseball fan. So in the grand scheme of things, I think baseball players in general, star baseball players, are just underrated because the general public doesn't know who they are. And that's really a shame. So I'm going to context this with the baseball in the baseball world. So Garrett Cole, I mean, Justin kind of hit on all the stats. The strikeouts per nine is insane. He's led the AL in like 3 straight years in that. He's not walking people. The one thing that really stands out to me about Garrett Cole is if you look at his field independent pitching. So field independent pitching is a stat that kind of takes out the fielders in a baseball game. Let's just pretend it was just Garrett Cole pitching against a hitter. What happens? So it's home runs, strikeouts, walks, things like that. And the lower that number, the better. So Garrett Cole's field independent pitching number is 0.46. It's first in the American League. Second in the American League is 1.69, 4 times greater. So if you took all the fielders, and there's another guy that we're going to talk about a little later, who's field independent pitching. If you took the fielder, he's pitching as well as he is, partly because of the defense he has behind him. Garrett Cole, that's not the case. If you just put Garrett Cole on a mound, no fielders, just a batter, he's going to be the best or one of the best pitchers in the game.
Yeah, I agree with you. Him and DeGrom are the top of the top when it comes to starting pitchers right now. So I think we both agree Garrett Cole's a pretty darn good pitcher. As Justin is having a little bit of Wi-Fi issues here on the walk-off, we will get him back. But Leroy is going to start us off with our second player. And Leroy, it looks like you could take your time on this player as we try to get Justin back. Former Oriole Kevin Gausman, now San Francisco Giant, having a really good season, Leroy. But will his career and his stats before this season make him overrated, underrated, or properly rated in your eyes?
Yeah. Kevin Gausman is every single year. This is it. This is the year, right? This is the year he puts it together. He's going to be the Orioles ace, Cy Young, and it just never happened. Watching Kevin Gausman was the most frustrating thing because the potential that was there, the stuff was there, but he just looked like he was just in another world on the mound, just to his facial expressions. So now he's putting it together with the Giants. We talk about, a few things. I talked about field independent pitching with Garrett Cole. Kevin Gausman's kind of that opposite. His defense behind him, if you look at his field independent pitching, it's kind of making him look okay. It's making him look better than maybe he typically is. But it's in line with what he's always had. So something, his balls against his batting average against balls in play, way out of line. It's way out of line from what his career is. And his home runs per fly ball percentage. So the number of fly balls that are hit off of him that turn into home runs is way down this year. So, all of that says that eventually it's going to even out, and he is due for a big regression, probably back to what his career numbers are, or if not his career numbers, what last year looked like for him, because last year I think he was in the lower fours. That's probably who he is. So right now I'd say he's overrated just because he's got some numbers going on now that just don't seem sustainable. And I think we'll probably see those come back into line. So Orioles fans, they get so mad when they see a pitcher having a good season elsewhere.
Right.
And they're, Dylan Bundy last year and now Kevin
Mhm.
Gausman this year. Why couldn't he do that here? Well, I have a feeling just based on the numbers that's going to come down.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And it's weird with Kevin because it's just he was that one guy when we called him up in 2014. It's like this kid has something special and he's going to do something here. Especially when he pitched in the playoffs in his rookie year in 2014 when he pitched against the Tigers. I remember just being like, man, this kid has something, whether it be in the bullpen where he came out or in the starting rotation. And it's interesting to see because when I first saw him, I would have told you he's underrated. But then when he started pitching down the line in 16, 17, 18 with the Orioles, it's like this guy's just not putting it together, right? And now he is, and then they're like, well, is this gonna stay? Like you said, Leroy, and it's just interesting career for Kevin because he's been a little bit of a journeyman the last few years. He's been with Atlanta, and I can't remember the other team he was on, but now with the Giants. So we'll see. Justin is having still a little bit of Wi-Fi issues here. He's trying to join back. His hotspot just disappeared apparently. So we're going to continue on without him. And Leroy, you're going to be the man until he gets back on. John Means. This is an exciting guy to watch, especially for us Orioles fans. Is John Means overrated, underrated, or properly rated?
John Means is such an interesting case. I love watching him this year. The guy is a bulldog. And I was just thinking about this yesterday or even the day before. Like, I really hope he's a guy we keep for the upcoming glory years, the 23, 24, 25 season. I don't know if we will, but I hope we do. I've been waiting for a long time for John Means to kind of crash down to earth because I've just felt like there's really nothing in his background before 2019 that would suggest that he should be doing what he's doing. But then he came out in 2019. Last year is a little bit rough at the beginning, and he settled into cruise control. Now this year he's looking great. However, if you look at his peripheral stats this year, again, the field independent pitching, the home run to fly ball percentage, they're all kind of falling in line to his 2019 numbers, which typically would be good news. The problem is 2019 was really a story of 2 years for John Means, or two halves for John Means. His ERA in the first half of the season was 2.5. But in the second half, it ballooned to 4.85. And I don't want it to happen. I don't want to speak it into existence, but I got to wonder if a regression is coming for John Means. So unfortunately, I hate to say it, but I think he's probably overrated, and he's on a bad team, right? So he's the best player on a bad team. That always gets you that overrated status.
Yeah, it's hard to say if he was on like the Dodgers or the Padres or some team like that in contention, how he would do in that, those rotations that are so strong over there. He would obviously be a 5 on those teams, but he's a 1 on the Orioles team. But I'm leaning more towards underrated just because of this season he's having so far. But like you said, he had a rough 2020 until the last like 2 or 3 games of the year. Well, and he had personal reasons, lost his father. That took a real toll on him. Got beat up real bad against the Yankees early in the season. He tried to throw harder, which really ended up hurting him in the end. We were seeing 95, 96, and now he's back down to 92 to 94. And he's got incredible command right now. The changeup is nasty. He's working on that breaking pitch of his. So I'm going to go with a little bit underrated right now, just because it's so early and everything like that. But he's got the second best ERA in the American League behind Danny Duffy. So that's interesting to see that. So, all right, Leroy, moving on here. This is an interesting one. Steven Strasburg. The guy's been hurt so many times. He's the Aaron Judge of pitchers, in my opinion. You get the hype. He's so good when he's on, but when he's hurt, and he's out. So Leroy, Steven Strasburg, overrated,
Yeah.
underrated, properly rated.
He's the definition of overrated, I think. Somebody with so much hype. You could ask either non-baseball fans or really casual baseball fans who Strasburg is, and they know him, and they shouldn't. They should know Garrett Cole, but they know Steven Strasburg because of all the hype that surrounded him. You're right. When he's on, he's on. But come on, 2 starts last year. He's had 2 starts this year. He's hurt, and who knows how long he's going to be out. The Nationals have been kind of non-committal on that. That's a pretty easy one. He's just overrated. I mean, he can't stay on the field. So, you can't be considered one of the great pitchers if you're not pitching.
And the thing is, we thought we were going to finally see him in full-on action in 2019. He pitched in the World Series, looked like the guy we knew he could be in the beginning, and just 2020 injuries. We played him. I think we lit him up. He came out of the game, and now he's hurt again this year for something. I don't know what else to say. He's always hurt. When he's on, he's on. But the Nationals paid this guy $240 million for 7 years when they could have paid the same exact thing for Anthony Rendon, who's now with the Angels. So, man, I just don't know what they're doing there. But
that's why the Nationals are one of those teams I consider on the downturn, and that's exactly why. It's very, very similar to what happened just down the Beltway with our beloved Orioles when they paid Chris Davis and kind of locked themselves out of signing Machado or Nelson Cruz or whatever.
Yeah, I agree. They were dealing with Bryce Harper for a long time. They could have had Rendon back. He got, I believe, the same exact numbers as Strasburg did, just on the whole different side of the country. So Strasburg, I think we're both going overrated with him, but interesting career to say the least. Final guy here, Leroy, as we wrap up, overrated, underrated, more properly rated. Trevor Bauer, man, this guy has been getting all the attention the last few years. We've talked about him on the show. You have some feelings on Bauer. What do you think, Leroy, in your opinion?
Yeah, Bauer, again, he's one of those guys that everyone should know. And I don't mean baseball fans. Like, he should be somebody that you can, ask your non-baseball fan children, hey, what do you think about Trevor Bauer? Oh, I love that guy. He should be that. I mean, I know, I've got my feelings on him, and I know you guys, being of the younger generation, love what he does back and forth. I'm a little bit hesitant, but whatever, it should sell tickets. It should put eyes on TV, and it should put butts in the seat. And I don't know if it's translating yet. Either way, he's a monster on the mound. I mean, he talks his trash, but he backs it up, and he is an absolute monster. I think he's properly rated in the context of baseball fans. We know who he is and what he does, and that's what he does. But if you're looking at just general life, I think he's kind of underrated. Like, more people should know who Trevor Bauer is.
Yeah, I agree. As we're getting Justin back now, it looks like. There he is. We got him back. We're almost at the end.
All right.
We're
Can you
almost
hear
at the
me?
end. Yep, Justin, you're back.
Oh
We're
my
here.
God.
We're doing overrated, underrated right now on air. We just got done Trevor Bauer. If you want to go and give your opinion on Trevor Bauer, then we'll go into the stretch. So go ahead.
Oh, absolutely. I want to give my opinion on Trevor Bauer. It's funny you said earlier before my Wi-Fi wanted to not be my best friend, and I miss John Means, who I wanted to say real quick, very incredibly underrated, put him on the map. This is no bias, even though I'm an Orioles fan. But Trevor Bauer, it was funny when you were talking about Garrett Cole and you said the perfectly rated. Last night when I was going through this, I actually wrote perfectly rated. For me, a guy making $40 million is hard to ever call underrated. To me, underrated on a $40 million contract is you're 33-0 with a 0.00 ERA and 300 strikeouts. But for what it's worth in his career and up to this point so far, I do want to say he is about perfectly rated. We know about that 4 ERA, in his time in Cleveland. Big part of that, I do believe he does have a home run problem. That is even something we're seeing here in LA. Really, big majority of the runs he's given up in the last years have been off the home run. When he's not giving up the home run, he is nearly unhittable. Right now, he is second in the league in strikeouts behind Jake DeGrom. So in a way, in a normal year where you don't have a freak of nature on the mound, in Jake DeGrom, he is leading the league in strikeouts. The last 2 years, he has been absolutely incredible. Again, nearly unhittable. We know his Cy Young last year, sticky substance or not, he has been absolutely incredible. To me, he is perfectly rated, and what he is doing in LA, he is living up to the hype that Trevor Bauer created for himself. And I had spoken on before, as someone that does really like Trevor Bauer, but isn't always the biggest fan of the way he goes about things. I think he is doing really well for himself. And I think that plays a big part into this underrated or overrated discussion of his. So far this year, in his 6 games, he's given up 2 runs or less in all of the games except for one. He's given up no runs in one. The only game he gave up 4 runs was the first start of the season, which, you know, every pitcher has a little more leeway in that first start. Overall, I do think he is perfectly rated. Like I said, with that high ERA, he played in Cleveland and playing in a lot of AL ballparks where your fly balls he's getting now in these AL West stadiums were home runs then. And that does, you know, that does matter in terms of how we're going to talk about it here. So Trevor Bauer, I'm going to say he's perfectly rated. And in terms of his social media, Trevor Bauer, he's underrated in that aspect. But I do like how you said that, Jared. I do think this is one that is perfectly rated, but we will have to see how it continues this year and next year on that giant contract, because he's going to have a much shorter leash, you know, to fans' opinions than really any other pitcher or player for that matter on our list. So, yeah, I think that's a good way to say him perfectly rated there.
Yeah, and ask us this question a few years ago when he was in Cleveland, we might all say that he's a little overrated with that high ERA, but now totally changed that career with that spin rate he loves to talk about so much and whatever substances pitchers use nowadays. But there you guys have it on the walk-off. That was overrated, underrated, and now we can put in parentheses, properly rated. We'll get to another one down the line. We'll do relief pitchers. We'll do every position player. Justin, you'll get your chances to come back and give your explanations for that. Hopefully the Wi-Fi can stay perfect like it is right now. But we got to go to our 7th inning stretch next on the walk-off. And we got to start the stretch off like we do every week with the trivia question. Nothing has moved here, guys, on the board. Leroy still holds the lead with 3. Justin and Davis are at 2. And Davis, by the way, will be back very shortly here on the walk-off. We don't know exactly when, but he will be back. He's going to be taking his normal role back, and thankfully I can just sit back and listen to you guys because you guys are awesome. I love listening to you every week. But the question this week is, Jacob deGrom's 50 strikeouts are the most by a pitcher in his 4 first games of the season. Who holds the record for any 4-game span for strikeouts? Not just his first 4 starts, but any 4-game span. When you're locked, so let me know.
I'm good.
Not sure. Most in any 4-game span.
Yep. Let me know when you're locked, Justin, because Leroy's ready.
See, the person I'm thinking, there's no way, because it was the answer last week.
Nah, I thought that before too, and it didn't work for me.
How recent is it?
I will not disclose.
In a 4-game span.
This could be a lot of people. This could be one of many people.
Could definitely be.
All
right, Justin.
You know what? I'm gonna go with Max Scherzer. For some reason, I definitely feel like that would that can work.
Okay, Leroy, who's your pick?
I think Roger Clemens.
Okay. All right, boys. 4-game span, most strikeouts was not from either one of your players. The correct answer, guys, come on. Nolan Ryan, the strikeout king himself. 60 strikeouts over 4 games in 1974. Man, I thought you guys are really going to have that one.
You know, that one crossed my mind. And I was just thinking about Roger Clemens because in 86, he had that 20-game or 20 strikeout games. So my
Mhm.
thinking is, he's got 20 there. I mean, if you
So I
pick
almost said Kerry Wood too, solely off of that and that season he had somewhere in there. I think that had to be.
Well, Scherzer had the same thing, 20 strikeout game, I believe in 2015, 2016. Good guesses though, boys, but sadly we don't move on the board again. We'll get
I think
there,
that
guys.
goes to show how many strikeouts that really is to have in 4 games.
Right.
There's a lot of players that sure we named were very close. 50. That's a lot.
Well, you figure he was in pretty much the double digits almost every time out there. So
Yeah.
interesting to see Nolan Ryan there. But now Jacob deGrom, 50 Ks in the first 4 games of a season done this year. All right, let's get into it, guys. Let's get into the 7th inning stretch. All right, guys. Diamondbacks outfielder Cole Calhoun underwent surgery on his hamstring the other day. And now Zach Buchanan of The Athletic reports that he could miss 6 to 8 weeks. And the general manager of the Diamondbacks, Mike Hazen, announced that this was the second IL stint for Cole Calhoun in 2021 alone. He was unavailable to start the season after undergoing surgery on a torn right meniscus. So an injury-plagued year so far for Cole Calhoun. Hopefully he gets back out there soon. The Yankees have traded outfielder Mike Tauchman to the Giants for left-handed reliever Wandy Peralta. Now, Jack Curry of the Yes Network reports New York will also receive a player to be named later. The out of options Tauchman will provide versatile depth in a Giants outfield, while Wandy Peralta will give the Yankees some bullpen depth. And he looks like he's going to start in the minor leagues in AAA. 600 plus days, boys. That's how long it's been since minor league baseball officially happened last. But now it's finally back as the minor league baseball season returns in all of its glory early this coming week, as names like Wander Franco, Adley Rutschman, and more try to cement themselves with their organizations. Guys, exciting times to be a baseball fan. Justin, back to you, bud.
Cool. I wanted to point out one thing for all the fans here in terms of how hard it is to watch Major League Baseball. Believe it or not, I actually didn't know this was a thing, and then I said something to Jared the other day. Minor League Baseball TV also is a thing. I think it was $39.99 for the year, which is a very good deal for you fans that want to go out there and see those players in your organization. That is a very good deal there. And it's going to be a very good way to watch your minor league teams. Is normally before there's really no way unless you really have some small cable network, I guess, or if you're really there. So fans, please keep that in mind. I think that's a good deal there. If you want to see your young players, I know for a fact I'm going to, and I know Jared and Leroy are gonna agree with me there. They'll benefit from that. So make sure you do that. I think that's a very big thing for baseball right now too. As the minor league comes back, they certainly want and need that.
Well, the best part
So
about
definitely
it,
make
Justin,
sure you're supporting.
Yeah, the best thing about that, Justin, before we move on here, is you get to see these top prospects in action live on TV. We're going to see DL Hall pitch opening day for the Bowie Bay Sox. We're going to see Adley Rutschman in that lineup. Grayson Rodriguez starting for Aberdeen on opening day. It's going to be a really fun time and a good time to watch some minor league baseball for us.
Yeah, I agree. It's great to watch your prospects in clips and short videos, but seeing them in that 9-inning setting, there's truly nothing like that for baseball fans. So I'm pretty excited about that. But we'll move on here. We're going to talk about who has always been one of, my favorite players in the league, always been underrated. And man, is he putting on a show and he's doing his thing, as we call it, the young boys, Leroy. This word's called swag. This man has swag, and that is Nick Castellanos. Shout out to my buddy. His name's actually Nick Castellano, spelled the exact same way. I always like to make that joke. I promised him I would at some point. But we're going to talk about his suspension, and has the MLB gone soft? If there is a word for softer than soft, the MLB is double that. If anyone did see what went down with why he got suspended, it was something NFL players do after every single play. And this guy got ejected for it, and then he got suspended for it. And the craziest part to me is, if you watch this, how this played out, he hits that home run, throws the bat flip, beautiful, it's awesome energy, we love it. He big home run, celebrate like Trevor Bauer said, he did something great. Later in the game, gets thrown out. No one's gonna like that. It's my least favorite thing in all of sports by far. Then later in that series, he's stealing home from third on a pass ball. He slides in head first into home base. perfectly safe. It wasn't really a bang bang play, but as the pitcher went down to tag him, he dropped his knee right into the center of his back. For anyone out there that's played sports, had a knee, elbow, anything in your back, man, that does not feel good. And you're getting that from a 6', 200-pound man. Respectfully, so you're going to get up with a little bit of fire. He got up as he was safe, as the pitcher's laying on the ground, kind of did the little flex over him, and he got suspended for it. For me, that's the softest thing I've ever heard. We just keep hearing about this. Let the kids play, let them do their thing. But then they do their thing and you penalize them for it. Like Trevor Bauer said in his Zoom interview the other day after the game against the Padres, when Fernando Tatis hit that home run off of him and rounded first with his little cool stutter step that he does, and he ran around covering his eye, mocking Trevor Bauer in that. What I want the MLB to look at is not how they feel about these kinds of things, but how the reaction is to the players. If you're going to go out and throw at a hitter because he did a great job seeing one of your pitches, putting good wood on it and sending it 400 feet over the fence, and you throw at him, why are they not being the ones penalized for that? We've seen how dangerous that can be. We just watched Bryce Harper get hit right in the mouth the other day. Very scary thing. And that was unintentional. Imagine that going intentional. So for the MLB to suspend Nick Castellanos for celebrating, to me, is an incredibly bad look, because then, just like in every crime statistic everywhere, you deter the crime, if we're going to even call this a crime, and then you're going to make the kids like Fernando Tatis, who felt bad about hitting a 3-0 home grand slam. When they're doing this thing, you're just ruining what is being created, which is a beautiful thing. And I think that's something the MLB really needs to step back on and understand. The players do not agree with them on the situation. And then the last thing I will say, Trevor Bauer's cleats, he had the cleats of Nick Castellanos standing over top of the pitcher, flexing. I think it's, what does it say, free Nick on there or something. Man, that's great. That's what we need to see, not Rob Manfred getting his panties in a bunch because he doesn't like the way a great hitter stood over a guy he just absolutely owned. Heaven forbid Rob Manfred ever turns on an NFL game. He might have a heart attack. I mean, for God's sake, if he saw the Super Bowl with Antoine Winfield, peace sign, and Tyreek Hill, he might have had to change his underwear.
Or NBA, right? Like, somebody dunks on somebody, what's the first thing that happens? They stand over them, they give them the stare down, and then they run down the court. And it's only good-natured fun. It really is. The only difference in baseball is that the guy you just stood over is now standing 60 feet, 6 inches away from you with a weapon. Right? That's the only difference in baseball. That incident was funny because I happened to be watching it live with my brother-in-law, because my brother-in-law is a Cardinals fan. So we're actually sitting there watching the game, and I thought it was I thought it was kind of a joke move by Castellanos, but certainly not to the level of a suspension. And I think old Nick, he got his punishment anyway, because I'm pretty sure he deuced his pants when he saw Yachty coming at him.
Who wouldn't, though? I mean, who would not? Like, I would not want
parts. He wanted no parts of him. So anyway, it's it's this overreach by Manfred. There's no way that we're ever going to get baseball to the level of popularity that it once was, or that some other sports are now, by taking any kind of personality out of the game. But it was, Jared and I were talking before the show started. Baseball players in general are so sensitive, and it's because they're brought up that way. It's like that from the time you get into Little League, all the way through, and until that changes, baseball is going to be what baseball is now, which is kind of that, in that second tier of sports. But yeah, a 2-game suspension is a joke, particularly when you've got pitchers throwing at guys' heads, like literally attempted murder.
Right.
And they get suspended. They might get suspended for 6 games, which is 1 start. It's just, where's the balance?
Now, real quick, before you go, Jared, I want to, you made me think of something, Leroy, when you talk about, that being a joke of a move, to an extent, like, yes, I do think that was a little extra what he did. We know baseball can be a fiery game as any other sport. So we know he came up with that fire, did that flex, and that's great. But then that made me think of something where you say you want to try and deter these players getting hit by pitchers by not letting them do that. But think of it this way is you've used your school examples before. So you have two kids that are fighting it out constantly, right? And you just have one kid that's just egging the other one on, pushing them in the sides, literally and figuratively. But then the kid getting pushed is the one that rocks him in the face. The kid that's getting rocked in the face is the one that's getting in trouble. He's Nick Castellanos in this situation. But we need to be really looking at the guy poking him in the sides, and not just that pitcher, but the concept of pitchers as a whole of, oh, you hit me, I'm going to literally hit you now. And I think that's the biggest issue here. It's not about the reaction. It's not about the action. It's the reaction by the pitchers is what we really need. And it's very dangerous. We saw this as Oriole fans back in, 2013 and 14 with Manny Machado and the Oakland Athletics, Manny Machado and the Boston Red Sox, Manny Machado and the Kansas City Royals. I know that's not, but point still stands. That's something that I do think needs to be addressed, because these players and the hitters, especially, they're not going to stop. I'll tell you that right now. Even if they're getting balls thrown at their head, that's going to do nothing but escalate this problem to a point where Rob Manfred will not be able to handle it. He can't even handle it now. Just imagine, that escalates is what worries me. But Jared, I know you have something to say.
Yeah, there's a little bit of everything I want to touch on this. So are you going to let the players play, or are you not? Are you going to, or are you not? Because this is what's been troubling baseball lately, is if you do something fun, or if you're in the moment and you got all that momentum pumped up in your veins and you do something and you motion to your dugout getting people fired up, you're going to get in trouble for it and say, oh, no, let's be nice. Like, it's a competitive sport, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're in the moment. And in Castellanos' case, that was what? It was the opening day or the second game of the season. So it's early. You want to get a good start. We don't know exactly if the Cardinals pitcher threw at him intentionally, but I thought it was interesting that Castellanos went to go give him the ball back. Like, he grabbed the baseball and said, here, you want this? You want this back? And then Yachty's sitting there trying to, keep everybody calm and everything like that. But then, man, when Castellanos slid into home plate, flexed on that guy, I was like, yeah, get you some. But then Yachty comes running over. I'm like, oh man, this is going to be crazy. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
For me, I was super conflicted there. So I'm like, go Yachty, but I'm like, no, stop.
I think Castellanos said, man, he's yelling shit at me, and I want him to sign me a baseball afterward. Like, it's Yachty Molina.
Right.
So it's like, it's interesting. But anyway, the suspension was crazy, unnecessary, makes players look like they can't celebrate or have a good moment on the field. And we've seen that a bunch of times with Trevor Bauer, even wearing cleats, certain cleats and belts that MLB said, well, oh yeah, there it is. And it's just, we're taking the fun out of the sport, and you want more young people to watch the game of baseball. This is going to prevent them from doing so. You want to see that action in the game and that excitement. But let me tell you something. The Reds like to fight. They did it last night against the Cubs. They had another benches clearing brawl with Amir Garrett, who we know ran over to the Pirates dugout by himself last year.
He would take on anyone by himself.
And he did it again pretty much yesterday with the Cubs, with Anthony Rizzo and Javi Baez. And the Reds love to brawl for some reason. I don't know why, but I don't know if it's just because they're so hyped up all the time. It's division rivals with both teams that I just mentioned. I don't know what it is, but are we going to let the players play, or are we not? It's just easy. It's easy as that. But, and like Leroy said, this whole suspension thing with pitchers and position players needs to be adjusted. It's ridiculous. If you suspend a starting pitcher for 6 games, he's only going to miss 1 start. Like, what is that punishment? He's just sitting at the dugout anyway. It's just, I don't know. I don't get it. But yeah, go ahead, Justin. I want to hear what you say.
With that, even the suspension just makes no sense. You look at NFL, you suspend someone for 2 games, he's out for half of a month. You suspend an outfielder for 2 games, that manager can turn right around and say, we're giving him off days anyway. So what is that deterring? Because again, that goes back to the reason you punish is to deter and act. And as we've seen, that's doing absolutely nothing. Suspend this guy for 2 games to come back, and he's going to have more fire because you're not just simply, letting him play. And even this is Nick Castellanos has been around for a while. Has always been a very kind of quiet, good player. In Detroit, I don't think I ever heard him speak to the media, and he was a baller then. We saw him plenty of times as the Orioles and the Tigers were big dogs in the AL. Then heaven forbid, he goes somewhere where he's a little more of the guy and he acts like it. Heaven forbid, right? But then again, what just gets to me here is you're going after Nick so hard. He was not the one who threw the baseball at another man.
Well, Justin,
and that just goes unnoticed.
I know what they're doing. They gave him the suspension as a tap on the wrist. No, don't do this. It's an example to the league right there. You don't want to do this, or this is what you'll get. And it's ridiculous because look, and going back to the Tatis home run last year, they were up 10-3. It was a 3-0 count, bases loaded. What do you want him to do? Strike out?
Right.
Like, what do you expect Fernando Tatis to do there? He's not going to let you strike him out just because they're already up by 7 runs. It's not a mercy rule thing.
And if you remember, that actually mess with that kid's head.
Yeah, it changed the series really. It's unbelievable. And it all goes back to why we keep saying this. It all goes back to Rob Manfred and the top guys in MLB who need to fix this and fix it fast, because you're going to lose fans and you're going to lose confidence and respect from your players. And that's what you don't want in this situation.
I agree. Keep flipping the bat. That's all I got to say.
Yeah. And the thing is with Trevor Bauer, he got lit up by Tatis, 2 home runs in a game.
And
but
he
struck
it.
him out. Yeah, he struck him out. And then he did the little sword
with
celebration.
Hosmer. Did you see that? And then Hosmer goes on first. He does a short celebration. He goes to Twitter and says, "Man, that was hilarious. That was great. This is great competition. I love it."
But like Leroy said,
what we need.
MLB players are getting sensitive. And not to roast your boy Mad Bum, Justin, but every time somebody hits a monster home run on him, he's telling them to run down the line, getting all offensive. I'm like, dude, you're the one who threw the pitch. Like,
I do agree. But that's the fire in Bumgarner as well. But I don't see Madison Bumgarner throwing 94-mile-an-hour fastballs at people. He goes in and tries to hit you with that sweeping curve under your hands and make you look dumb. That I can be okay with.
Right. And I think the celebration thing is necessary because it makes it fun for people.
If we're going to do nothing but strike out or hit home runs, celebrate it.
Yeah. A pitcher's equivalent of a home run is striking somebody out.
Right.
And if they want to celebrate that, do it, because you threw a nasty pitch that fooled a hitter.
Something you work for.
Yeah, this is your job. And to do it at that great of a level, you want to show off a little bit, and not like Amir Garrett. Now, Amir Garrett's different because he sat there and pretty much barked slurs at Anthony Rizzo for no reason. Like sitting there, like just calling him name, like
one of the nicest guys in the MLB, and Anthony Rizzo.
There's a limit. There's a limit. I get you. It's your rival. It's the Chicago Cubs. But celebrate, but don't go aim it towards him directly. Do it yourself, or look at your dugout and get them fired up.
Right.
But it's just, that one was a little unnecessary in my opinion. But the Castellanos thing, MLB needs to fix this and do it quickly.
Yeah, I agree. I always remember seeing this video. I'll take this back to the great NFL coach who I have never been a fan of, Bill Belichick, but it was I believe it was on an episode of Hard Knocks, or just one of those shows that NFL Network used to showcase during training camp. And he's talking about now, and mind you, this is maybe the most clean cut, straight face, hood up, never smiling guy, top of that, that category in the NFL. And he said, you're a defense lineman, you get a sack, you celebrate that. That's what you work for. You're a cornerback, you get an interception. You worked for that. You should celebrate that. Then we've seen the rise of the celebrations in the NFL in the last couple of years once they've allowed that. How awesome is that? But then you look at the MLB and they say, man, we want the fans the NFL has, but this guy just flipped his bat after he just smashed a home run, and we're going to say, hey, get out for 2 games. So these are all self-inflicting wounds on Rob Manfred. He's robbing the fun. completely, and that's very upsetting.
If only we were commissioners of baseball, right? Everything would be right in the world.
I would suspend you if you didn't bat flip.
Yeah, it's like, dude, you did something great. Celebrate. Get your team fired. The Tim Anderson bat flip changed the whole scene of the bat
Yeah.
flip.
Now,
When
and
he-
also, mind you, I'm sorry, Jared.
No, you could.
This is all with fans back for the first time too.
Yes.
That plays a big part of that. The players want to showcase in front of the fans, and you're not letting them do that. Why in the hell would I spend $60 on a ticket when I'm watching home run, strikeout, ground out, and there's no noise, no excitement, nothing going on the field? You know.
Well, and I will say this though, before the Tim Anderson, it was the Jose Bautista, right, in the playoffs. Did you see how fired up those fans got when he flipped that bat? I mean, it changed the series. It didn't just change that game, changed the whole series with the Rangers for them, for the Blue Jays. So
I hated that bat flip.
Yeah, you hate it or love it. It was awesome, right? It was awesome to see. So
indeed, and if you remember, he threw that bat. What did he do? He looked straight into his dugout.
Exactly.
Into his dugout, just like Manny last year in that playoff game. Look, threw that bat, looked right into his dugout. It's a good way to go about it. Not Demir Garrett, where he's like, no, I'm fighting Jake Paul next.
The dude thinks he's unstoppable. Like, he runs towards dugouts by himself. Like, there's 15 plus men in the dugout.
You would look at him though. I'm not gonna lie. I would probably need 3 or 4 guys with me to take him out. He's running at me. I'm gonna bring Yachty and Nick Castellanos with me.
If you want to have a brawl, have Yachty or Molina on your team. That's what you want to have, right? Because
absolutely,
he'll back you up no matter what you do. If he's on your team, he's going to back you up. So,
Leroy, is there anything you wanna touch on?
No, I'm enjoying the back and forth here. It doesn't matter to me, but I completely agree with you. More emotion in baseball, the better, because whether I know Jared's a wrestling fan, and I was when I was a kid, and when I think back on my wrestling fandom as a kid, I tuned in to watch the guys I loved, the Hulk Hogans and the those guys. And the guys I hated, the Roddy Pipers and the Ric Flairs, man, I hated them, but I loved to watch them. Yeah, you got to, regardless, emotion is good. It's a good thing.
And Leroy, I'm sure you saw it when Albert Bell just plowed through that second baseman to break up the double play. You don't see that anymore because the rules, like, you can't block home plate. There's no more catcher collisions unless you're Michael Franco and you just plow right into a catcher. It's just there's no more of that, and I understand that for safety and everything like that. But I saw Francisco Lindor just last night. It was a double play scenario. They were in the shift. He ran towards the runner going to second, missed him, threw to first, and missed him too, and he was safe. Like, it's crazy. We could go on and on and on.
They called McCutcheon out for running out of the base path, and he was running on a dime. Perfect. If that was a string on the ground, he did not take all his feet off of the string.
And can we say, just to end the show, 2021 MLB umpires have to be the worst in history. It's so bad, and the replay system is broken. It's absolutely broken.
That replay system is the dumbest thing I have ever experienced. At this point, I'd almost just rather not have it.
Yeah, if you're going to make the wrong call every time, then what's the point of having it? You've got every angle available. You've got slow motion. There's no more tie to the runner at first base. There's no tie to the runner anymore because they have that availability to see who really touched the bag first. And it's just broken. And we'll get into that next episode because we have to wrap things up. So, Justin, I'll leave it to you.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of weird things with baseball we're not always the biggest fans of, but I do believe the kids are on their way up when we watch the stuff like this, even with the suspension. That's not going to stop a lot of people. We're still going to see Fernando Tatis ball. He's going to throw the bat. We're going to see all these players going off, which is good. This is what we want. But unfortunately, like we said, it is about time for us to log off here. But before we go, as always, we have our baseball fact of the day. This one, we're taking this one way back, but this is a story grown to every baseball fan has heard of this story and how crazy it is and the fact that it worked. It was in 1928, and he had bases loaded and 2 outs in the 9th inning, and the Giants manager at the time wanted to intentionally walk a batter with bases loaded. Just Heaven forbid a manager did that today. Oh my Lord, he would be fired before that inning before that inning is even over.
Well,
Then he-
Leroy saw the first ball hit in baseball history, so I know he remembers that.
I do. I do.
See them. You saw him playing with the cloth glove.
He knew shoeless Joe Jackson back in the day.
Yep. But
Oh
it's
my gosh. No, but back to your fact,
yeah, as
Justin.
crazy as this
That
is,
was the Barry Bonds before
Yeah,
Barry
as
Bonds.
crazy as
That's
this
what I was
is,
going to say.
it worked. They walked them. They scored a run and went to 2-1. They got a ground out to win the game. So conventional ways of managing, no more. We'll take it back to the 20s with our bat flips and our walking batters with bases loaded. Sounds like good baseball to me. I know that sounds pretty good to you guys. But as usual, we thank you all for joining in. Make sure you follow the Walk Off. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on YouTube. Make sure you follow that, give us a like, subscribe. But unfortunately for now, until next time, it is time to walk it off.